was the Quakers who are by the Religious Society of Friends, also as Quakers. So when John Bound settled here in the 1660s, he actually met his wife Hannafy, and she was a Quaker. So she actually she taught about the Quaker faith, and he ended up converting. And she was a Quaker missionary in her own right. She was a preacher, so she was quite interesting. Her role within the Society of Friends at the time, and still, is that men, women, they could both be preachers, and that David can actually speak to this better than I can. But so please refer to him if I'm giving incorrect information. But one of the reasons they kind of broke off from the Church of England was that there was no kind of central authority figure, and that. So that was quite radical for the time, and a lot of Quakers ended up leaving England because they were facing persecution, and Flushing was quite an appealing place to come because of the Flushing Charter. And again, it wasn't just Quakers that came here, but they did become a very big group in the area. And like I said, John Bound became a Quaker. But in the 1660s, which many of you might know, Peter Stuyvesant became governor, and at that time he was trying to kind of pull back on some of those privileges and rights, and wanted everyone in the colony to be part of the Dutch Reformed Church. That was quite common for colonies at the time to kind of be under one religious authority, but people who had settled here disagreed with that. They said we came here under the promise of being able to practice freely, gather in groups, freedom of assembly as we call it now. And they wrote the Flushing Remonstrance as a protest letter, some of the citizens of Flushing. And John Bound ended up being one of the Quakers in the area who continued to hold meetings, actually in this home. So I'll be showing you the first room that was built. That's where they did hold the meetings. Kind of peaceful protest to what Peter Stuyvesant was saying at the time. John Bound, along with some other Quakers, was arrested. He ended up, instead of being banished to England, which is what they wanted to do, he decided to go to the Netherlands, because this is a Dutch colony. So he said, I'm going to actually fight for this because we have the documentation, and now we have the protest letters. And he went to the authorities in the Netherlands, and he ended up having a trial. And he did, I guess this is very long story short, but he did end up winning the trial by fighting for his case. And that became one of the first instances in what is now the United States of America, where you had the idea of freedom of religion, freedom of assembly, actually put on trial, and then he ended up winning. So it really established that. So that's why Flushing itself is such an important part of this history and an important part of American culture. And again, it wasn't just the
We had a townhouse now.
So this was the spot where they had the meetings, but like I said, they did have meetings outside as well. One famous incident was when George Fox, this is like kind of a representation of him made in the 1800s. We don't know if that's what he looked like, but he was one of the founders of the Religious Society of Friends in England. He did come visit here because he did hear about John Bound and his trial, and also just the community of Quakers living here. So the story is that too many Quakers showed up. It was too crowded because everyone was excited he was here. So they actually moved the meeting outside. And right across the street from us, when you're across the street, I think, what is it, off of 37th Avenue? There is a big stone monument, and it's the...
in front of the school.
Yeah, so it's